Hello, you wonderful gunslingers! We're back with another deck tech. I missed last week because I've been a little bit busy, and I'm working on a bigger project. I want to do another longer form kind of video fairly soon on Eternal and just some, like, more theory crafting around the game, like actually building a deck and how to do that. And I've got a few ideas, so I wanted to do a bigger video, so you can look forward to that coming up soon. In the meantime, though, we did have a promo that came out recently, and I do want to get to that. So there's a lot of cards we've kind of plumbed the depths of already in Set 5. I feel like we've got most of the format down. We've done a lot of very weird jank decks, but they do still have promos coming out, and this one was an interesting one. It was Milos, and we're going to make a deck today that's called Little Bo Beep, because it's Criva and Grenadin. So the idea is that there's Milos, Unwavering, Idealist. So if you haven't seen this card, it's one of the new promos. Whenever you play another unit, it gains the stats that Milos has. So you can see that if we're going to be trying to do like kind of a Praxis tokens list, then that's going to almost act as another Xenan Obelisk, or maybe even better. And so there's a bunch of different cards that we can combo that with, and I'll kind of go through that. If you've ever seen any of the Praxis token lists, though, you'll see that there's a lot of cards that make a lot of that are kind of crossover from that and make a lot of automatic sense, like Grenadin Drone to get a go wide board. We have Trailmaker to help us with fixing, and also just to ramp us a little bit, like nice little aggressive creature that also happens to let us play bigger things early. Amaran Stinger, which after the buff has been kind of in a lot of different lists. It's very RNG dependent because it really depends on when they draw the Scorpion traps, but just a 2/4 unit with charge that has the potential of giving you a bunch of extra units is quite strong. Obviously Milos himself, and then we have Red Canyon Smuggler, and I'll get to the market in a little while. So we're using a black market this time. I've often used a lot of non-black markets. I've been using a lot of regular markets because I like to have extra consistency in my deck. But I think that this one benefits a little bit from having a bunch of one-ofs that I didn't really want to include in the main deck. Plus, double damage on Red Canyon Smuggler in what's kind of an aggressive deck is pretty nice. We also have Criva, so one of the namesakes of the deck. Criva is charge 4/2, and at the end of your turn, you return to your hand, but you also get to play a 0/1 sheep. Generally not a good card. I'm not necessarily saying that it's great in this deck either. This is a very fun little list. This is definitely a brew. But the idea here is that if we have a Milos out, then Criva keeps getting bigger every time she comes in. So she gets that +1/+1, comes back, and then gets another +1/+1, or more, depending on if Milos is larger. And we'll get to how we make Milos buffer in a minute. But also, the sheep get buffed too, right? So whatever Milos' stats are, they also become larger as well. And then we have some other things that combo with that in a second that I'll kind of show you about. And we have Marisen's Disciple, so we can choose and play Scorpion, Locust, or Sandcrawler, just more ways to make a bunch of tokens. So we've got a few top-end, quote-unquote, cards here at 4. Now we have our attachments, and this is where we get into the meat. This is how this deck kind of differs a lot from a regular Praxis token list, because, I mean, Marisen's Disciple, Stinger, Trailmaker, Drone, cool. Like Assembly Line, Torch. Xenan Obelisk even. Those all make sense. But then we have some deep tech. We've got Bear Arms, so whenever you play a unit, it gets +1/+1. Put that on Milos. So you go Milos, play Bear Arms on it, and then curve it into an assembly line. You can do some real fun things that way. So what actually happens is because you play 3, you get Milos becomes a 2/2, and then you play Assembly Line, and Milos becomes a 3/3, and the first one becomes a 4/4, and then the next one's a 5/5 because Milos is now a 4/4, and the next one's a 6/6 because Milos is now... So it just kind of ups itself that way, and then you can obviously combo with all kinds of things like Criva and Marisen's Disciple, and just a bunch of things like that. So Bear Arms is a very fun one. Another one that kind of automatically triggers is Shogun Scepter. So because you automatically get a 2/1 Oni Ronin with Warcry, you play Milos, play a Shogun Scepter on it, Milos becomes a 3/2, and then your Oni Ronin gets +3/+2. So you already make a 5/3 Oni Ronin, which is pretty sweet off of just Shogun Scepter. Then we have Vault of the Praxis, which you might have seen in some of these lists, but it's another way for us to use the Criva so that we can get some extra draw in here. We've got the Marisen's Disciple, all those kinds of things. And then we have your regular, like, Xenan Obelisk is obviously going to be awesome. And it combos with Milos, because you play Milos, then Xenan Obelisk. Milos is now a 2/2, and everything you have gets +3/+3 when it comes into play, rather than just... Or, sorry, +2/+2. +3/+3 if... Or +4/+4, rather, if this is at 8. So, it gets bigger and bigger, just kind of combos together like that. Oh, no, sorry, it is +3/+3, because this would be 2/2. Yeah. My math is a little off here. Milos gets larger, becomes a 2/2. This gives +1/+1. So everything would get +3/+3. If you get to 8, then it's +5/+5. Just off of that alone, not even equipping Milos with anything, which is pretty sick. You can do some really cool things there. And then we have our regular kind of power base. Just a bunch of different crests, and then some sigils. We don't want to have too many things depleted. I tried to play as few crests as possible while still maintaining some manner of influence. You can see that we're not playing a lot of Justice. It's just Milos, Red Canyon Smuggler, and Bear Arms in the main deck. We do need a little more Justice for the sideboard, though, because we have two things that require double Justice. We have Vanquisher's Blade, because I have been seeing a little bit of Reanimator. So to stop them from being able to get stuff back out of the void, it's nice to have a Vanquisher's Blade. It also pumps up Milos. And of course, it functions as removal for some bigger things that stuff like Torch can't touch. So later on in the game, if we're falling behind, they've got something big that we need to bust through, we can Vanquisher's Blade and set up that way. We also have Stand Together, which... A lot of people have kind of forgotten since Vara came out. Once Vara stopped Aegis from happening, people stopped playing Stand Together. But there's less Varas now, and it's just such a blowout, especially out of the market here, where people won't necessarily expect it. I think that it'll be really fun. Obviously works very well with Milos, and just kind of a cool card in general. We have Ijin, Imperial Armorer. This one I'm not sure about. It's really slow, but it also gives a lot of power to Milos. So you can pay 4 and exhaust it to play a +4/+4 Mithril Armor on another one of your units. And you can do that every turn, so you can just keep making Milos bigger and bigger and playing more things like that. So if you get into a long, grindy game, you can make Milos just an unstoppable powerhouse if you want with Ijin. And then we have Deep Forge Plate for that immediate bust-through potential, both on Red Canyon Smuggler for the double damage, or on Milos, or, you know, whatever you need to put a Deep Forge Plate on. And then Boar is in the market just because we want to be able to get rid of, like, opposing Pit of Lenecta, or if somebody ramps up into Martyr's Chains really quick, or things like that, then it's not bad to have a Boar. And yeah, this is our deck. We're going to run it through its paces, and I hope you stick around. Let's have some fun. Big shout out to all of the subs and patrons who make this possible. I do really appreciate it. We got a couple of new patrons this week, so thanks to all the people that did stop by, and we'll be back with all of the rounds.